Reality Bytes. This is Desley Casey, your host.
And Sue Pavlic.
And so today we thought we'd do a bit of a wrap-up of the Australian federal election 2022. And most people will know, probably even around the world these days, that the ALP, the Australian Labor Party, have got into power. Whether they will be able to govern in their own right, or whether they will need to negotiate with the crossbenchers as a minority government, is still up for grabs at this point in time. Getting off of Albo, and no, I accept what you're saying and respect your opinion on that. I think for a lot of people in the Australian electorate, it was Labor couldn't do any worse than what the LNP have been doing. It couldn't get any worse. I think in the Australian electorate, and you only have to look at the two-party preferred vote to see that both parties went down in their percentages. Never in the history of Australian elections has a party won government on 32% of the vote.
Yeah,
that's basic. Even Gillard had 39, and that was the minority government. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that sort of respect. But what I'd like to see is genuine debate in the Australian Parliament.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe they should totally get rid of the archaic legislation. I move that the member no longer be heard, because I reckon if they moved it, then the LNP will tie up the Australian Parliament like you wouldn't believe. And you won't be able to shut them up, for hours on end. But they do have to put some parameters, I think, in place. But we need genuine debate.
And that's something that's sadly been lacking.
Well, it was because Tony Abbott revived that archaic legislation when he was opposition leader, or PM rather.
PM.
He became aware of that archaic legislation, and they've used it ever since.
To stifle debate.
We need genuine debate.
Yes.
Including with the crossbenchers in Parliament. We need that. But we also need a rider of some description or a parameter that nobody, whether it's Liberal, Labor, Greens, Independents, will hold the debate to such a degree that nobody else gets a say.
I agree.
They need to do something about that legislation, because everybody I talk to who has watched, you can watch on TV,
Question time in Parliament.
It's just pathetic. There's no genuine debate.
No.
And I think that needs to change. I also believe that if you do not come to the House, then you don't entitle to a vote.
Yeah, I agree with that one too.
Not this, we'll come down and just make a debate while we're watching it on our screens up in our offices. No, you need to be in the House. It's the people's house. You need to be in the House. That's something else that I think needs to change, because then we will start to get genuine debate, because too many people. Now, I watched Julian Hill and Justine Elliott introduce the bill to scrap the cashless debit card, and you would have been lucky to have seen half a dozen politicians in the House for the first reading of that bill. That's
Yeah.
to me is disgusting. I don't give a toss what they think is more important. They should be in the House listening to those bills being read.
Yeah.
You know, this is, to me, it's BS that they're sitting up in their cozy little offices, probably got a staffer watching the debate. If they're paid to be in the House, they're paid to actually debate, they're paid to actually listen to the
Yeah.
other side of the argument, whoever
Yeah.
side of the argument it is.
Yeah.
They're not paid to sit in their, excuse my language, bloody offices with a staffer or their PA or whoever, or their policy advisors listening to the debate and telling them what they should be doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you. Absolutely. It needs to be cleaned up.
Now, quite frankly, I don't know, quite frankly, and I'll be brutally honest here, I don't know whether the ALP have it in them to change those two rules. I don't know whether they have it, because now what they've suffered for 9 years, they can now do to the LNP. Let's face it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they can. I'd like to think that won't be the case. I'd like to think that we're a little bit more mature than that, and that we won't waste taxpayers' time and dollars on BS like that. That we would genuinely get in, put up bills, debate bills, pass bills, and move on.
Yeah. But I personally, I'd like to think that, but the cynicism in me says no party really wants to get rid of that or modify.
No, maybe not get rid of it, because it's there for a reason.
I think it needs to be modified.
I think it needs maybe a time situation. Okay, so you can speak, like the first reading of a bill, you can speak to that for, I don't know, half an hour, whatever they determine to be reasonable.
Yeah.
And it's opened up to debate, and and we go from there. And each part is like timed so that you can get things through.
Yeah.
So that one party isn't holding up all of it, stopping anything getting through.
Absolutely. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I'd like to see it go, I don't think we can, but I would like to see it modified.
Yeah.
That it enables genuine debate, none of this BS.
Yeah.
That we just close down that because we don't like to hear what they have to say.
Exactly. Yeah, and just walk out of the room because we don't want to hear it.
Or turn our backs.
Stuff like that. Yeah, turn our backs. And or play on our phones, or whatever it is that they do. I agree with you 100% that, you're there to do a job. You're not a child in kindergarten. You are there representing the Australian public. They put you in that position, and you need to do your very best at what you are elected to do. And that means sitting there, listening, contributing, debating, whatever it is, that's your job. That's what you need to do.
The other thing I'd like to see in the Australian Parliament, which I doubt that we will see across the board, is that every party member, regardless of every member of Parliament can vote according to their constituents and according to their conscience on every piece of legislation.
That would be an interesting one, wouldn't it?
It would be, because it would stop this, we have to vote along party lines. And only, yes, you need a collective, but then it needs to be that people need to be able to say, but if I haven't been heard in that collective, I need to be heard on the floor.
Yeah.
And I know we have it, like New South Wales has just passed last week the assisted dying bill. We're the last state in Australia to pass it, actually. And that's the thing. And it came down to conscience votes.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't just be for bills of such a situation. It should be, people should be able to vote according to their conscience, according to their constituents, because that's who they're representing.
Yeah.
On every bill. That's my personal view.
Yeah.
I would like to see it a lot more. I think people, if they really want to restore the Australians' faith in our democracy and in our politicians, and these are some of the things that I personally believe would go a good way to having that restoration.
Well, it would be nice to have a bunch of mature adults debating issues than a bunch of kindergarten kids, which is what they are at most of the time when they get into the House of Reps. They're like letting loose a bunch of 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they need to grow up.
Yes. And I think there needs to be a lot more dignity, a lot more respect.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be a lot more open debate, regardless of what side of politics you're on. I also believe that people, I think they should be allowed a conscience vote on every bill, not just have to vote the party line because that's what the party has dictated. Whether it's Liberal Nationals, whether it's ALP, whether it's Greens, it's like at the moment the big discussion is, are the Teal independents going to vote as a bloc? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this sort of thing. We shouldn't have to have that sort of debate. They should be able to vote according to their conscience and their constituents.
Yeah, I think in some ways, though, that kind of defies being a member of a party.
No, I don't think it does, because I think what it means is that the party is as democratic as possible. If they can, if their conscience, if they believe they can vote as part of the party, then go for it. But if they believe it goes against their conscience to do it, and they're having to do it because that's what the party wants them to vote, that's how we got the cashless debit card.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
But then you look at what happened to Bridget Archer when she crossed the floor on the religious bill.
But he's a known bully. Scumbo's a known bully. And not only that, I'm going to say he's a known bully because that's what he comes across as. That's what he's perceived as, put it that way.
Yeah.
He's perceived as a known bully.
Well, he even acknowledged that by calling himself a bulldozer.
Well, the fact is that he called her to his office and there were 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
How dare you vote against the party line? She voted according to her conscience.
Yeah, and her constituents.
And she crossed the floor.
Yeah.
And her constituents. And that's the thing. They shouldn't be called out for how dare you. It should be, okay, I accept that you won't vote that way. That's fine. We have to look elsewhere we have to make a more convincing argument. He wasn't prepared to even back down at all on that bill.
No, not at all. He wanted, but then that's him all over, isn't it? That he wanted most things the way he wanted them.
And even in the campaign, he said he would reintroduce the exact same bill.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, you got defeated. There was a reason it got defeated.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't prepared.
And now he's been defeated, so all's good.
Yeah. Well, he has, but now we've got Dutton, so it's going to be.
Yeah, well, the longer, like you said earlier, the longer Dutton's there, the longer Liberals will stay in the wilderness, because there are 2 people in that party that are, I'll be kind, not very well regarded. Morrison was one and Dutton was number two. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So the longer they have him as a leader suits me to a T, because that's how long they'll be in the wilderness.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But you got to give it to, good old Barnaby. I mean, think what you will of Barnaby. I'm not a big fan, must admit, but the Nationals stayed intact.
Yes, and they got all this. They didn't lose the seat that they held.
They stayed intact. And, like I said, say whatever you will about him, but, that's one area that, didn't have any losses. So
well, maybe the Liberal Party might look to the National Party to say, well, you obviously got it right. What did you do?
Yeah.
But I think they're too arrogant to go to their partner.
Yeah.
And find out what they did obviously right.
Yeah.
To have held all their seats. Another thing that I want to get on before we close, and this is, politicians are going to hate me for this, and that sort of thing, but I think, and it's something we talked about over the phone, is that if the 5% pay rise is $1, then that's all per hour, then that's all politicians should get to.
Yeah, agree 100%. And I think we need to work out a better system for pay increases. We talked about this earlier on the phone. The lowest can't get $1, but the poly's got 6%. 2%. So you can't have $1. We can't give $1 an hour, but we can give $11,000 a week. I mean, it makes no sense. We need to have a system where it's either we go with CPI increases or whatever measure we come together and agree on, then that's how it is across the board. There's none of this, okay, so you can't, but you can. And if but it's based
even a
on
CPI,
the lowest to the highest or whatever, but a better system.
Even a CPI increase wouldn't do it, because the polly's on, and I put together a few figures, so just let me get that file up.
But for how long have we seen executives get these huge wage increases and then bonuses on top and so on and so forth, while those that are actually creating those wages and bonuses can't get by? Yes. Need 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the rent. I mean, it's nonsensical.
Well, if we look at the politicians' wages, and this has been put, I put this together this afternoon after we spoke, and I got it from pedestrian.tv news, salary bill, how much do Australian federal politicians earn?
Plus $2 million a year for expenses.
But so does Elbow.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying I'm just saying $2 million in expenses. Are you serious?
This is what I got. This is from this website. And
549,250 per year for salary, plus $2 million in expenses for meals and transport. What?
That's for the PM. For the opposition leader, it's 390,820 plus $2 million a year for expenses for transport.
That is insane.
Look,
I get they travel, and I get that they have horrendous working hours. I do, but that's why they get the big dollars. I don't know, $2 million for transport and meals.
Well, it's $4 million between the pair of them.
Yeah, it just seems so excessive to me.
And if you look at the base salary for federal MPs, so they're your backbenchers or your senators, it's 211,000. Your cabinet ministers get 364,000. So ALP are in for a pay rise.
Yeah.
The treasurer gets 396, so Jim Chalmers is in for a nice pay rise.
He'll be happy about that.
And the leader of the Senate gets 332,000. The Greens leader gets 301,000. The deputy PM, who is Richard Miles now, he's got a pay rise of 433,000. So basically, some are getting a pay rise, some are getting a pay cut, except for Dutton. He's in for a pay rise. The treasurer gets a, what else have we got? Cabinet ministers. So your shadow cabinet, I think I'm making an assumption here that the shadow cabinet ministers will get about the same amount. So that's what it comes. That's the breakup as of 2022. Now, if you take a CPI increase, now CPI increases are between 3 and 4%.
Yeah.
If you take even on, okay, so let's do a bit of maths. Let's take it on just the base salary, $211,250. So 211,250. We'll be conservative, 3% divided by 100. So it's $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
Now, if you take the average, what's the average minimum wage in Australia? It's $20 something.
$20.38 or something.
$20.38. We'll multiply that by 40. Remembering this is the gross, not the net.
Yep.
Multiply that by 52 weeks in the year. It's 42,000. Now, if we say they also get a 3% increase, okay, multiplied by 3, then divided by 100, they get 1,000.
Yeah, it's not a lot, is it?
So when you think about it and divide that 1,000 by 52, is $24. Divide that by $24 a week divided by 40 is 61 cents an hour.
Yeah, it's not a lot, is it?
Okay, so he's talking about $1. That's what I'm saying to you, that whatever's the minimum wage they set, that's what everybody should get, regardless of what their pay scale is. Because if we looked at it, was 6,000, what did we say? Okay, so let's try this. 211,250 by 3 divided by 100 is that. And how many? There's 157 parliamentarians.
Yeah.
Okay. Multiply that by 157. This is just on the base. Let's just say all the others get exactly the same, but they'll get more. But anyway, well, that's 994,000 for the year.
Yeah, in increases.
Just for, and that's just on the base. But that's saying every politician, remember there's all these different scales in
there.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're looking at close to $1 billion just on an increase. Now, if we went $1 an hour, which is what Albo was talking about when LNP tried to beat it up big time about the increase, and it worked out to $1 an hour by 40 hours is $40 by 52 is 2,080 or something like that. That's on a 40-hour week, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that sort of thing. Now, if you multiplied that by 157, regardless of what position they held in government, it's not even $500,000.
Yeah.
So if you take that out of the 994 that we were looking at before, 994, let's say 994, 987, they could literally save themselves 668,000 just in, and that's minimum.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's minimum. That's not taking in all these different percentages. That's why I don't believe tying it to the CPI.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Doesn't work, because they still end up with more money. You know, and that sort of thing. Now, this thing about it's all set by the independent umpires and everything else like that. Yeah. Well, isn't that a great excuse to say,
thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, electorate, I'm not going to accept it. Anybody? Oh, okay, they're human. Why would they knock back a pay rise that's been given to them? But where's their conscience?
Yeah.
If wages have gone back in the last 10 years for the Australian workers, it sure as hell hasn't gone back for the politicians.
No, it hasn't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as we've just, and that's just that's just a run-of-the-mill average gap thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that sort of thing, just run-of-the-mill. But, well, we've just found 664,068.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just say they gave Centrelink recipients. Okay, so there's what, 4 million Centrelink recipients?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say we gave them, well, let's say because they're not working, we'll be generous here. Not that I feel like being generous, but we'll have to be generous to be fair to those who believe that people get too much, you know what I mean? And that sort of thing. And they're not working or whatever the reason, you know, doesn't mean just because they have the same bills as everybody else seems to.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter.
Gets lost in the argument. But let's just say we gave them so we gave them $40 a week.
Yeah.
Okay. The same $40. Let's just say that, or even 80 cents. Okay, we'll be generous. We'll give them 80. We'll give them 80 cents by 40 hours. It's $32. So we give them a pay rise of 32. Okay. By 52. So it's $1,600 by 4 million, because there's about 4 million on some sort of Centrelink recipient. Yeah. Okay. So that's 6,656,000. Well, we've just saved them 668,000 in the Polly's wages, haven't we? So minus the 668,000, or 668,427, actually, to be exact. We've knocked 668. Then if we add in all the travel allowances, well, now I don't mean every travel allowance, because you've got to have it equal for remote politicians in remote areas, and that to be able to get to Canberra and stay in Canberra. But the rorsching that's going on with politicians and that travel allowance is just pathetic. They need to tighten up the rules there. I reckon we would possibly save, I reckon we could take off possibly another 4 million there. Starting to come down, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now remember,
crazy.
That's not worked out properly for the viewers and the listeners. It's not worked out properly because of the gradual scale. So if we look at PM, for example, at 549,250, by 3% divided by 100. That's 16,000 a year. Well, that's more than what, or around equal to what a job seeker gets.
It's more than a job seeker gets.
Depending on, a couple of things there. Plus you add in, I reckon they could halve that travel expenses to 1 million. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know what, I did actually have a look at what they were spending it on, etc., and what they get, the commercial rate and the non-commercial rate, which I really don't fully understand. But there was one where I got a complete breakdown of, it actually gives the breakdown by state and by up until, the election on, basically the complete breakdown.
Yeah.
I
think Albo would have used up all his frequent flyers.
Well,
his feet never touched the bloody ground during this period.
Now, this is for what party, where their home base was, but their travel allowance, their overseas travel, domestic scheduled fares, unscheduled transport, other car costs, office facilities, office administration costs, telecommunications, family travel costs, and employee costs, which was rather fascinating. And you can see this at ipea.gov.au/P for Papa, W for Whiskey, E for Edwin.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where you can find it. So this is, I'll just try and highlight it there so you can see it. That's the website. And it gives every member of parliament, whether a senator or whatever, it literally gives it. So if I, for example, look for New South Wales, and I'll look at Fiona Phillips, so it gives senators as well as MPs, every member of parliament. Okay, Fiona Phillips, here we are, Australian. She's based in Kalala Beach, which is on the south coast. And one of her major expenses, it was 40,820.06. Now, what's that one for again? That's administration costs, so that's her staff. And her telecommunications was 1652.93. Just in telecommunications, but nothing for family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now another high one was 37,000. So what's that for? That's office facilities, which it'd probably be about right because she's in the office was in Nara. She did not have travel allowance, overseas, domestic fares, because she lives. Maybe a 2 to 4 hour trip to Canberra by road.
Yeah.
Unscheduled transport. Let's have a look at. Well, we're still in that, so let's look at Scumber. Okay, his office cost him about $50,000, which would be about right for Sydney.
Yeah.
He spent $120 on family travel. That's rather interesting. Employee costs were $360,000. He's got a big office, hasn't he? What about Albo? Let's have a look at Albo. See, we've got Tony Abbott in there.
Yeah, I just saw that.
Anthony Albanese. I wonder if we can do something here. Oh, I see. This is their report. There we go. His employee costs were $254,000. he didn't have much into telecommunications, office administration. Look at his office facilities.
That's a big pull.
That doesn't sound right, does it? What did that go for? So you can actually even drill down even further. And let's see, office facilities.
25,000.
No.
Office administration costs. Total office administration costs.
That would be his staff admin.
Yeah.
But his office cost 174,000.
Wow, where the hell's he got the office for? What's this one?
It must be gold plated. That's all I can say. It doesn't break it up as to how many offices he got. That's even higher than Scumber.
Yeah, must have read something wrong in one of them because I can't see.
So he spent $8,000 in travel allowance.
I'm actually surprised at that. I thought that would have been much higher.
Well, this is probably as of it's December 2021. Don't know what this office facilities at 174. Seems very high, put it that way.
Does seem very high.
Seems very high. I'm not sure what he. I just can't. I could see where it'd be expensive, like Morrison, because it's Sydney, but not that high.
No, there's got to be something more to that.
It'd be a good question to ask him soon.
As soon as he gets back from the quad, I'll get on the phone.
Good on you. Okay, so I'm back again. So we're right. I just thought that was interesting to bring. I found that breakup. What I couldn't find, and it was something that I found probably last year. What I actually couldn't find was the table that had outlined all the parliamentarians' pay rises for quite a number of years. We're not just talking 10 years,
Yeah.
It had the historical data as well as the current. I couldn't find that somehow that's been taken down, that historical data. I literally couldn't find it, which is what I was looking for, to see where the pay rises were.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. But getting back to our point and that sort of thing is, I think there needs to be a wage freeze on parliamentarian pay rises.
I think I'd agree with you.
Yeah. And I know I read somewhere where one of the MPs in the Liberal Party reckoned we should have a pay rise, but he said it 4 years ago. But then he also stood by what he said in the election campaign, saying he said 4 years ago there should be a pay rise, and he was asked again in the election campaign just gone, and he said, "Yeah, I stand by it. We should have a pay rise." Well, frankly, no. There needs to be a fairer system, and it wouldn't hurt them just to get $1 an hour pay rise.
No, not in the current climate anyway.
At least then they have to make do with what they've really got, instead of see, they not only get the pay rise, they get the travel allowance, they get the meal allowance, they get this, they get when you add it all up, yes, they're away from home a fair bit, but most of them have either purchased property in Canberra or they're sharing, some type of apartment or house or whatever. And they're not sitting in hotels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me is, well, if you're not, it needs to be more indicative, you know. Okay, they're paying a second mortgage, but then so do other people in this country pay a second mortgage without all the perks.
Yeah. Or maybe we have some government housing for them to live in while they're in Canberra.
Modest government housing.
Modest, yes.
Anyway, I'm not sure. Is there anything you'd like to say about our wrap up? Because we have been talking for quite a while.
Yeah, no, I think I've said everything I wanted to say to this point. I just hope that, you know, I've been fairly optimistic, and I hope that my optimism is rewarded. I've always been an optimist.
Yeah, well, I would like to extend my congratulations to the ALP and to Albo for getting in.
Yeah.
Now the proof is going to be in the pudding.
Yeah.
You know, and as we mentioned earlier, when they find out exactly what they've inherited, then we'll
review.
We'll review. And that will also be, but I would like to see some changes there that, you know, if you want an integrity or to actually build up people's faith in the parliamentary system and in our politicians, then some of these things that we've been talking about, some of these strategies that we'd like to see, or, you know, maybe have them consider, might go a fair way to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and on that note, this is Desley Casey and
Sue Pavlic saying good night.
Good night. Thank you for
Be kind to each other.
Yes, thank you for watching and listening, and hope you have a great day wherever, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.